Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The next characteristic against which Wordsworth and Coleridge wrote and against which they revolted was the theory of poetic diction of 18th century, Pope and Dryden's age. Wordsworth and Coleridge, as we have discussed earlier, we are discussing those characteristics against which the Romantics revolted. The first characteristic was that the new classical writers, poets, they were interested in form and not in matter. So, Wordsworth and Coleridge revolted against this fact, and they did not give much importance to form, they gave more importance to matter. So, this was a kind of revolt. The second is that the new classical writers believed in the theory of poetic diction. And by poetic diction, they meant that the language of civilized people is different, of course, from the language of uncivilized people. Those who are educated, when they speak, their language they believed is different from those who are uneducated. They also said that the language of poetry was different from the language of civilized people. So, see, the first point is that they thought that educated people use different language as compared to the uneducated or uncivilized people. And they also believed that the poets use different language uh, as compared to the language of the civilized or the educated people. And thirdly, they said that the language of prose is different from the language of poetry. So these are the three items which you should understand. The theory of poetic diction, diction means words. Their theory of poetic diction, first of all, was that the language of poetry is different from the language of educated people. The language of educated people is different from the language of uneducated people. And the language of poetry is also different from the language of prose. So these are the three items which you should remember. Then comes the use of meter. You know that meter refers to the uh, regular pattern developed by the stressed and unstressed syllables. They believed that the only type of meter which is the best one is the heroic couplet. Couplet refers to two lines which rhyme together, and these two lines had each line having 10 syllables and 5 meters. Such a line is referred to as iambic pentameter line. So each line was iambus, that is unstressed, and then a stressed syllable, and these were 5 in number. So therefore, it was a pentameter line, and the meter used was iambus, so it was called iambic pentameter line. Heroic couplet actually consisted of two iambic pentameter lines which rhyme together, and they believed that this heroic couplet is the best type of meter or a rhythm which can be used, and they thought that it is better than any other type of meter. So this was also included in their theory of poetic diction, that the language of poetry was different from the language of prose, from the language of educated people, and that the only type of meter, which is the best one, is the heroic couplet. So they used heroic couplets. They were not interested in grand vision. They were not interested in grand thought and the philosophy of life. Their subject matter, as we discussed earlier, was just the quarrel between the families, as is found in The Rape of the Lock by Pope. And we do not find any greatness in them as far as their subject matter is concerned. They were not great. We know that Longinus had said that the qualities of great poetry and poets are great vision, that they should have a great vision. Now, the quarrel between two families and that about the cutting of the lock can never have a great and grand vision. It cannot be great matter. And the passions and the emotions described are extremely artificial. You have studied The Rape of the Lock and you found out that the emotions expressed then are quite petty and small. And these were the things which gave them the name of pseudo classics. So, this was the theory of the poetic diction against which Wordsworth and Coleridge wrote. They did not believe that the best form of meter is the heroic couplet, and they did not believe, especially Wordsworth, that the language of poetry is different from the language of people or from prose. इसको उर्दू में सुने। हम पढ़ रहे हैं कि वो कौन सी कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स हैं जिनके खिलाफ वर्ड्सवर्थ ने और कॉलरिज ने लिखा। पहले हम पढ़ चुके हैं कि न्यू क्लासिकल एज जो कि रोमांटिक एज से पहले था वर्ड्सवर्थ और कॉलरिज से, वो मैटर में दिलचस्पी नहीं ले रहे थे, फॉर्म में ले रहे थे, और उनका ख्याल ये था कि बड़े बड़े अल्फाज इस्तेमाल करके ये क्लासिक्स की तरह हो जाएंगे। दूसरा पॉइंट जो आज हम डिस्कस कर रहे हैं वो है थ्योरी ऑफ पोएटिक डिक्शन। इन का ख्याल ये था न्यू क्लासिक्स का कि सिविलाइज्ड लोगों की लैंग्वेज एजुकेटेड की अनएजुकेटेड से डिफरेंट है। इसी तरीके से पोइट्री की जो लैंग्वेज है वो एजुकेटेड पीपल के लोगों से भी डिफरेंट है, और पोइट्री की लैंग्वेज प्रोज की लैंग्वेज से भी डिफरेंट है। तो वर्ड्सवर्थ ने इसके खिलाफ कहा और उन्होंने कहा कि पोइट्री की लैंग्वेज आम, ख़ासतौर पे वर्ड्सवर्थ ने, क्योंकि कॉलेज बाद में इसके खिलाफ किया है और हम उसको भी पढ़ेंगे। नेक्स्ट इनका ख्याल ये था कि सबसे बेस्ट टाइप ऑफ राइटिंग ये हीरोइक कपलेट्स की। हीरोइक कपलेट्स दो लाइनें होती हैं जो आपस में राइम करती हैं, और ये आयम्बिक पेंटामीटर लाइंस होती हैं दोनों। और इनका ख्याल ये था कि ये हीरोइक कपलेट्स ये बेस्ट फॉर्म है ऑफ राइटिंग है मीटर के हवाले से। हीरोइक इसको इसलिए कहते थे कि इस किस्म की कपलेट्स को हीरोइक पोइट्री के लिए भी इस्तेमाल किया जाता था, और इनकी कोई दिलचस्पी ग्रैंड विजन और थॉट और फिलॉसफी ऑफ लाइफ में, अजीम सोचों में, ये इनकी इंटरेस्ट नहीं थी। ज़िंदगी का फ़लसफ़ा क्या है इसमें इंटरेस्ट नहीं था। इनका इंटरेस्ट था मामूली फैमिली की लड़ाइयाँ, जैसे रेप ऑफ द लॉक में दो फैमिलीज़ की लड़ाई है, कटिंग ऑफ द लॉक के बारे में। लॉन्जिनस का जो व्यू था ये इनका नहीं था। लॉन्जिनस का ख्याल ये था कि ग्रेट पोइट्री और ग्रेट पोइट वो है जिसका विजन ग्रेट हो, जिसका तस्वर ग्रेट हो, जिसका सब्जेक्ट मैटर, जज्बात, इमोशंस ये ग्रेट हो। तो ये असल में क्लासिक नहीं थे, ये सूडो क्लासिक्स थे। तो ये वो दूसरी कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स थी जिसके खिलाफ वर्ड्सवर्थ ने लिखा कि नहीं, लैंग्वेज ऑफ पोइट्री ये डिफरेंट नहीं है आम लोगों की लैंग्वेज से या प्रोज से। और दूसरा ये कि हीरोइक कपलेट सबसे बेहतरीन फॉर्म नहीं है। तो ये इन्होंने इसके खिलाफ लिखा। यूँ ये छोटा सा लेक्चर दूसरी कैरेक्टर, मैं चाहता हूँ आपको ये कैरेक्टरिस्टिक अच्छी तरह समझ आ जाए, तो हम इसको अलग अलग छोटे छोटे लेक्चर्स में कर रहे हैं। थैंक यू एंड गुड नाइट।